The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbiter?" Then he said to the crowd, "Take care to guard against all greed. For though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions." Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods, and I shall say to myself, now, as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, to whom shall they belong? Thus will it be for all who store up treasure for themselves, but are not rich in what matters to God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I had two funerals this week and a wedding. I think the second funeral and the wedding couldn't be from families further apart. One, very poor single parent, mother, who died at age 74. And then at the wedding, you can't believe this opulence, I'm telling you. It was incredible, down in San Diego. So you kind of wonder about what is important. How do we judge success in life? Well, this lady who passed away, and this always fascinates me, how there can be single mothers who have very menial jobs are able to provide for a family, so that her children can get up and say, "You know, we never wanted for anything." How do they do it? It seems to me sometimes when you're making more money, you're more worried about it. But somehow they said, "We never had to worry." In fact, she raised 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. How did that happen? And when they described her to me, you know, you'd think, boy, somebody kind of weighed down with all sorts of problems. Her mother died when her mother was 36. Now, she was 74. So what she did, they tell me, was had a few little principles to go by. One of them was, never plan anything. Guy in the gospel reading, "Oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that." Us, "I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that." Me, "I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that, and I only do half of it, if I'm lucky. But the whole idea is that this planning of our lives, this counting on what we're doing, this saving our money and trying to be in a situation where we're never caught off guard. That wasn't this woman's principle at all. She says, somebody would say, "Let's go to Vegas." Boom. Yeah, she go to Vegas. I don't know where she got the money to go to Vegas to raise a kid, but she went to Vegas. She loved bingo. She was a diabetic, lost a limb. And her diet was so careful. Chicharrones. She loved every kind of junk food there was, and she ate every bit of it, and that was it. And you know, they said she was not prejudiced at all. Not prejudiced at all. She would, for example, be so open-minded that it would be, let's say, Corona, Coors, Blue Moon, also, she loved beer. Now this woman basically broke all the rules. She enjoyed life. She was always there for her family. The only worry in her life was to worry about children and grandchildren, because I guess everybody sort of does. But she was ready to go on a second. And when she finally got ill so that she really couldn't be the person she was before, you think she really got depressed? She says, no, tell him to leave me alone. I just want to rest. I just want to rest. She was an amazing woman simply because they said life happened to her rather than her controlling life. And her philosophy was, no, let it be. Let it be. She wasn't a person who feverishly planned anything, and yet that room was full. And despite the fact that her mother died at 32, when she got to be 33, she goes, I made it past my mother. And every year after that, all the way to 74, she lived quite a little bit beyond her mother. She didn't look at that kind of as some sort of a sentence or a prediction of how her life would be. And the way she lived, you wouldn't think she'd live that long. So I'm kind of wondering whether her attitude overcame all of her, kind of chicharrone sins. I think we need to learn a little bit about, the Gospel's about money. The first reading is vanity of vanities. We get so wrapped up in what is physical in the physical universe. But that's basically what the Gospel is about as well. It's about why are we so concentrated on trying to make our life here comfortable and predictable. I dare say that this woman's life was not only not predictable, but was exciting. She pointed out very carefully to all of her children something that my mother never would have told me. Don't plan anything because you get disappointed. And it's true. You ever plan a trip, or you plan, especially, somebody who's going to do something with you. I heard this from a couple one time. They says, oh, my daughter. I shouldn't say her, but it wasn't confession, don't worry. She said, I was all hepped up because I thought it would be a perfect time for us to go to Disneyland. And her significant other was saying, okay, all right, not this day, okay, that day. That day came around, he goes, I'm just too tired to go. And my daughter's very honest, he goes, and I just sat there like a little baby. And it was an example of, she had this all ready to do in her heart, and it didn't happen. And she was disappointed. So what this woman said is, in a sense, something that we can take to heart. I mean, I'm not saying we have to be irresponsible, but she wasn't. She was responsible. But she took life as it comes, and everything was kind of spontaneous, and she enjoyed life. So rather than trying to manage it, rather than feeling comfortable when it's just according to her plan, when everything is nice and orderly, what she decided to do was to allow life to happen. And because of that, the time she spent on this earth was joyful. And despite the sorrow those people felt when they got up to talk about her, they couldn't help but smile. Okay, here we are. We got all things in our minds, and we may think something ought to be done a different way. It could be in any part of our lives, and we're just causing ourselves a lot of anxiety because it's not going our way. How about just simply figuring, why don't we let it a little bit go God's way? And the faith element in that is to say in ourselves that we, dependent upon God, will not go wrong. We will not be lost. When Christ took a little child and put it in the midst of the people and said, it is to just such as these that the kingdom of God belongs, they didn't believe that. Kids in those days were like dirt. They were nothing. They weren't like we have them today. If they brought a child and said the child is the most important among you, they would be completely shocked. And he said, this is how we have to become. Open to what's happening, trusting in God's care for us. And I think probably going through life with a lot more stomach lining than we will if we're worrying about every little thing. So the other thing is, keep your eyes and your ears open. No conclusions on anything until maybe you have really done a good job of figuring out what's going on, like Donald Trump. This whole thing, this whole election, I still think it's the funniest thing. Somebody called it a dumpster fire. This could cause us all a lot of anxiety. I don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do. Oh my gosh, and then, you know what? Somehow, no matter who goes into that White House, life is going to happen. And I think our best bet, no matter which way we go, is to trust in God again. You leave it up to God and allow life to happen as it happens. And that's what makes us different than anybody else. So relax, smile, go and get I got a shirt that says "Enjoy Life." I said that before Mass. That's my new theme. I'm tired of getting all whacked out and anxious and everything about anything. And it's going to be all right. Let us rise now and profess our faith.